Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. My name is Aurora, and I'm just looking at my date. It's August 15th. And so what I'm doing with this presentation, the information is about the flying rainbow lasagna shape and DNA. And in the recorded lessons, this would be corresponding with level 1, lesson 9. And usually I would do the second hour of this presentation as the level 2 stuff, which is about harmonics. However, I'm pushing off harmonics for next week because it requires me setting up some instruments, microphones, and some other equipment in order to do that properly. And level 2 of this week is going to be the advanced understanding of how flying rainbow lasagna can affect or interact with DNA. So the whole entire presentation this week is all about flying rainbow lasagna and DNA. Don't panic. I'm going to do harmonics next week, and then we should realign ourselves with the way that the schedule was going. Okay, so yeah, this is the meat and potatoes, and I really say that this is just like music theory because we come here, we assemble together each week, and I talk a lot, and I flap my moving mouth parts, and I give you all these things that are details that are backstory and foundation ideas and understanding for something that is a spontaneous, immersive experience. So you don't have to know all these things. And a lot of the time when people find my class and my online stuff on YouTube now, they come to me and they say, hey, I think I've been spontaneously doing this stuff for years. And I think that that is very, very likely because when this is the way that things work in the cosmos, when you have a new idea or when you come up with, wait, we could turn up my piano a little bit. When you come up with a new melody, that is not just your personal private melody. It is a melody that is now available for anyone, any place to take and utilize and to make their own. That's the way that thought structure works. So yeah, when I first came here, people were telling me like, oh, you should patent the flying rainbow lasagna. And I looked into more of what it is, and I understood like that's not really the appropriate thing for me to do with this particular idea or like represent embodiment of an idea, because it's not just for me. It's actually not my own thing that only I get to do. I'm the first person. I invented how to do it. However, it is something that is available for everyone. And just as I did last week's presentation was all about non-religious Christ consciousness and the idea that each person has this as their birthright. Christ consciousness is a connection to an aspect of your own biological and non-physical or energetic anatomy. It's not just for people who identify as Christians, and it's not just for people that are in a particular group or have read a particular book or anything like that. It is something that everybody gets to participate in. Even non-human species can be part of Christ consciousness. Blue whales and elephants and dogs and cats and horses and redwood trees can all be part of that. So in that same exact way, flying rainbow lasagna also is like not any kind of a religion. It's not anything like that. It is something that is embodied. It is something that you do with your body, literally with your anatomy. So I do the flying rainbow lasagna, and it was actually difficult for me when I actually wanted to begin teaching it or sharing it with other people, like how do I actually do it? Because it's one of those things that I do very spontaneously, and I had to kind of learn by trying to show it to other people. Okay, what do they need to know? And how do I break it up into pieces, parts that make it accessible? So that's what I've been doing with this presentation, with these classes, is how do I break up the foundation ideas into manageable sizes of nutrition that then can be put together into one giant thing. So that's what I'm trying to say, like stick with it. If you're in the class, stick with it. All of these pieces of information fit together like puzzle pieces, and then it coalesces, and then you actually understand it, and that understanding bolsters your dance. It makes it easier for you to do the dance. So today, this is all about anatomy of your DNA. How is it shaped? A lot of my information overlaps with science, but it is not the same as science's understanding of DNA. And then we add in the flying rainbow lasagna. That's level 1, and level 2 is going to be all about more advanced, jazzy things that you can do with your instrument, with your body is your instrument, or your quantum laboratory. And flying rainbow lasagna is like a new melody that you can play with your body. So level 2 is or will be or are all of the advanced jazzy tunes, you can begin playing with your body. So Pedro says, I'm a little confused. In the class, there is lesson 9, part 1 and 2, but part 2, but there is no part 1. Is it somewhere else? I apologize if that is not properly uploaded to Teachable. I will be sure to check on it. So I'm going to write myself a note, because if I don't write it down, I will totally forget. So I have to check on lesson 9, part 1 on Teachable, because it's available on my unlisted playlist that I have if I need to send it to anyone that's not available. I mean, if it's not on Teachable or not accessible for whatever reason, if it evaporated, I have it in another format that I can send it to you, so that way you can have it right away. Okay. Okay, so that's a good question. Dominic is talking about synchronistic numbers encoding in DNA. So this is a good segue for me to do this. DNA is way more than the way it is presented in terms of sciences or Earth surface science understanding of what DNA is, what its behavior is, and how it is affecting reality. So science mostly has been presenting DNA as if it is a static object, like an X-shaped chromosome, and also it is presenting DNA as if it is merely the blueprint for biological architecture. What your nose is shaped like, or how many teeth you have in your head, or how many fingers you have in your hands. And DNA is so much more than that. It is the integument that ties your flight through time together from moment to moment. So if I am going to redraw this, for anyone who's in the class, this is going to be something you're probably becoming very familiar with. My analogy of the little boxes or the little train cars of reality, that if this is, let's say I'll draw one box and then all the rest you'll just mentally fill in, you'll know whether that's a box, and all these squares are boxes. And each of these boxes is a moment of time separated at the Planck length, or these are the smallest slices of time that we can slice time into and still define it as time. And then these little green squiggles, these are the DNA dance. These are the motions that tie together your consciousness, your experience of moving through time from moment to moment. So if your consciousness is this red dot over here, this red dot of you is jumping from that moment into this moment, into this moment, into this moment, all the way on down the line for what is considered to be, the entire length of timeline that is your life. And we die when we stop jumping. Like if you don't jump out of this box, then that is quote unquote death. You have hit the membrane of death. You're no longer jumping through time. And now I'll go back to me. So that jumping motion of DNA, this has to do with supercoiling. So I shared a supplemental homework video that is all about supercoiling, and someone, I think it was Eric, told me that he had difficulty accessing it. I don't know if there are copyright issues. I've shared that video a lot before, but it has that Kill Bill soundtrack on it, so I don't know what's going on. If that's not working, I shared another video that is just very dry and scientific. And it basically shows what I'll show you in diagrams over here, but videos are even better than static diagrams of DNA has behavior. So big takeaways. DNA is what drives us through time. DNA has behavior. It doesn't just sit around doing nothing. It actually does stuff. And now I have a collection of images to show you how DNA does stuff. Okay. So starting off with this right here and go into annotation. I'm going to get that annotation to work. I know there's a way to do it. Nope. I have to press on something. This is why every time I'm trying to make it work. Come on. I know what I have to do in order to, here, hold on, stop share. I'm very organized, guys, don't worry. Share screen again. Here, we'll just start with this one. There we go, annotate. Okay, so one of the first things, so this over here is first of all a simplification of the way that DNA is shaped. It's not a totally accurate line drawing or diagram that we're looking at. So this is one of the first things. You see these nodes, these crossing points, they look relatively the same, equidistant, like all of these little segments are the same. That is not the way it's actually shaped. So I have a better, more accurate diagram. So this is the first thing, is I'm pointing out the inaccuracies or the liberties that were taken in the person that created this diagram. I didn't create this diagram. I got it from like a scientific based website, so that it's like I'm trying to say, like, I didn't just make this stuff up. So but this is an accurate diagram in the sense that it shows what happens when we unzip DNA. So for a large portion of DNA's lifespan and behavior, it is unzipped. So this is when DNA is completely coiled up, it is in its chromosome shape. So this, I should start from the very, very beginning. If this is the outer membrane of your cell, and this is the nuclear membrane of your cell, inside of the nuclear membrane, DNA is only coiled up and shaped like these chromosomal X's during the process of mitosis or cell division. And cell division is what happens when we are taking one cell like this, it gets super filled up with nutrients, and then it splits itself down the middle along that blue cleaving structure that I just drew over there. And then what we end up having are these kind of V-shaped X's. The X's turn into V's and they kind of split apart. And we have one that goes in this direction and one that goes in this direction. And then they each become, individual cells. So this is the process of cell division. So this is, okay, because there's cell replication happens in two different ways inside of your body. One way is if you've got, here's a ova and here's a sperm. That's not a good sperm. Let's draw a better sperm. It's like, here's a little, there we go. Then they come together, this plus this equals, that's conception. And then that explodes outward, not explodes, but expands outward according to what is known as a flower of life, this particular perfect polygon pattern of cells that begin to replicate outward. That is one way that cells begin to replicate. But another way that cells replicate is through this mitosis. And that is what happens all the time inside of all of us. Your skin cells are doing it, your bone, your heart, your teeth, everything. Everything is doing this all the time. So this is a part of like cells, just like we were talking about stars that have a metabolism and they have a lifespan and they have stuff that they're doing. Cells have a lifespan and there's stuff they're doing. And some cells are short-lived. They might only live for a year or a couple of days, like whatever the cells that are in the lining of your stomach that might not live for very long. Then there are neurons that can live for 60 years. So if we've got outer cell membrane and then inner nucleus membrane, the DNA is only coiled up like a chromosome, like an X shape, when it's ready to mitosis or split in half. And for the entire rest of the cell's lifespan, which for a very long-lived nerve cell could be whatever, 59 years and 9 months or something like that, your DNA is called chromatin. And now I'm just drawing, like, imagine we've taken the genetic sweater of you and we pulled out all of the loops and we pulled out all of the knots, and now we just have a whole bunch of yarn in the nucleus of your cells. That is what is in the nucleus for most of a cell's lifespan. And in that format, so here we've got that word chromatin, in that format of chromatin, we have a great deal of activity. So when it's a chromosome, that's like when your clothing is all packed up, ready for travel. You have your socks rolled up into their tiniest little package so they can get on their, your overhead carry-on luggage, right? That's chromosomes. But when you get to your hotel or when you get home, it's like your socks can explode outward, everything can get unrolled, all of your stuff can come out of your suitcase. That is chromatin. That is when the genetic material or the scrolls that contain the information of the book of you, and the book of you is more than your cellular structure, it's your book of events of your life, can actually be read by RNA messengers. And the process of going from chromatin, an unfurled sweater, to chromosome, which is the knitted form, is called supercoiling. So this drawing over here is accurate in terms of supercoiling, in that it shows, just changing color here, one thread of DNA, that's like a yarn, and that yarn gets wrapped twice around these little protein structures called histones. And then it goes, it's like a spool of thread. Then it goes on to the next one, wraps around twice, to the next one, wraps around twice, and wraps around twice. That's the earliest stages of supercoiling. And then as more and more energy is added to the DNA threads, you begin to form these stacked up donuts or toroidal structures. And what I say all the time, guys, any place where you have a torus, you can transform it into a flying rainbow lasagna. I'm going to clear all this stuff away. I'm going to go on to another picture. Hold on a minute. I got lots and lots of pictures to show you. And I'm just doing it one at a time because I wanted to do this thing with share screen where I can also annotate. Let's try it again. See if I can make this work again. Annotate. Annotate and share screen. Okay, wonderful. It's working. So what's back here? Just wish my face wasn't in the middle there. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Now you guys can see it. This is really good. So this, what I'm highlighting over here, this little drawing, it's not my drawing again, but this begins to show you the different complex patterns that the chromatin can be woven into when it is in that free-flowing state. That it's not fully supercoiled, and I'm trying to say it has behavior inside of the nucleus. So how do things work inside of the nucleus? I'll draw it again. You've got, get a better color. Got the outside cell membrane, then you've got the nuclear membrane, and then you've got we'll make DNAs blue in this lesson. You've got all the wonderful DNA chromatin inside of there. So what happens in your inside of each cell is you've got these guys over here. This green blob is called RNA. And RNA has a special library card and is allowed to go into the nucleus. Not everybody in the whole world is allowed to go into the nucleus. The nucleus is only for special people that have special library cards and that will treat the DNA nicely when they go in there. You can't have someone go into the library if they're gonna eat lollipops and get the books all smeared with candy and tear out all the pages. That's not cool behavior. So the RNA messengers go into the nucleus of the cells, and they roll along the edge of the unfurled DNA, and they read it in a tactile sense. So that means that in order for the RNA messengers to read those portions of the DNA must be unfurled or accessible, and then it makes a copy. Like imagine these green squiggles, like a photocopy, like a Xerox, and then the RNA messenger goes out of the cell membrane and it brings its little copy of what it took out of the library. And then that is what is used to assemble protein structures or actually make stuff in using the blueprint of what was in the actual DNA. So these are some of the complex patterns that DNA can begin to weave into. And I brought this image up just so that you could begin to understand how complex those patterns can get. I have some other images that are a little bit more simple, but you can see these are like each individual loops that are twisted and furled together, and then you have them kind of joined together in the center over here. And so science is just beginning to understand that DNA can come together in these complex interweavings inside of the nucleus, and that the DNA actually has behavior. Okay, wait a minute. Now let me see if I can go back to moving stuff around. Good, I can move stuff around. Okay, here's a really good image over here. And this is what I was trying to say to you guys before. The first image I showed you was inaccurate. Now let me get a good color here. So this is still a screenshot taken from an accurate scientific animation. That is a video. It's not something that I made, but it's an accurate scientific animation of what DNA actually looks like. Where I'm highlighting here in red, that is a DNA thread. And what you can see is we've got see these two little guys that I'm doing? Those two are close together, and then here where I'm scribbling, they're far apart. Close together, far apart, close together, far apart. So I'm always talking about how your DNA vibrating strings are just like the strings of a piano, and you make music. Well, guess what? These are called the major and the minor groove. I'm pointing right now to the minor groove. It is very groovy, and I'm pointing right now to the major groove. This is actual, these are science words of what's going on in your DNA. So yeah, your DNA, when it is accurately portrayed, has this particular format where you have like unequal spacing. in the waveforms. And you can begin to see these are waves. I hope you can see. Wait, here, first I'll do one wave and then I'll do the other wave in a different color. These are waveforms, all right, guys? We're getting into wavelength and frequency. So I just highlighted the red waveform in there. Now let's do the blue one. And then you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's the blue one, blue one. All right, so in this picture, let's now do the green color. This big giant green blob over here is the RNA messenger. And the RNA messenger runs along this unfurled train track or ladder of DNA, reading the amino acids by their texture. Kind of like, you know, runs along here. I'm thinking like, you know, like something that like a roller coaster little car runs on a little track. And in order to access this DNA, you can see there it has to be unfurled. So these two things, I'm scribbling here, they are relatively far apart. Look at all of this space that is in between. This is areas of DNA, or these are areas of DNA that have been unfurled so that the RNA messengers can read it inside of there. So if each coil of DNA if this is like a spring, like a slinky spring that I am drawing, if it's far apart, opened up far apart, like what I just drew over here, there's plenty of room for the green RNA messengers to get on in there and read the book of DNA. But let's say that everything is coiled up super tight. Here's everything coiled up super, super, super tight, like as tight as I can possibly draw it. And the RNA messenger comes along, and it's like, hey, wait, those pages are stuck together. I can't get in there. I have no idea what it says. I can't read it. That is epigenetics. And epigenetics it literally means the code that rules the code. And it is the mysterious but not ununderstandable force that makes certain aspects of your DNA either be tightly coiled like this or loosely coiled and unfurled like this. And this is how we can understand identical twins do not develop identical diseases. And I often point people in the direction of Bruce Lipton. He's accredited scientist, research scientist, who's done a lot of work in looking into what makes DNA behave in the way that it does. Because nobody wants to get cancer. Everybody wants to know, what is the secret? How do we not get cancer? And the answer is, your thoughts and emotions and beliefs and expectations all have an impact on whether or not you are tightly coiled or not tightly coiled, literally. So if someone tells you, hey, you're destined to get cancer, it's going to happen if it's written in your genes, then your DNA will act like this. And if you believe it, then your DNA will act like this. But if someone says, hey, just because DNA is written in your genes doesn't mean you have to actually experience it. Oh, sorry, cancer is written in your DNA. It doesn't mean you actually have to experience it. Then your book, your pages of how to build a nasty tumor close up like that, and then you don't have to actually experience cancer rather. I'm sorry, sometimes my brain and my mouth do not match up, but you understand what I'm saying. So that epigenetics, as it is understood by science, is the beginning of the understanding that your DNA, as it is inherited from your parents and your ancestors of deep antiquity, is the starting point. It's the beginning of what you can do. It's the musical score that tells you, like, these are the notes you should play, but then you can be a jazz musician. Like, these are the notes you should play. But you can choose to play in a different way that no one has ever played before, or the way that is most comfortable for you. Wait, okay, let me clear this all the way. Clear all my drawing. Let me go to other pictures here, and I'll get to your wonderful questions too. How do I go up here? Nope. I want to just click on this, click on this. Sorry, I'm talking out loud. I'm trying to be like, okay, how do I, there we go. Sometimes I don't know how to move everything around exactly right. Here is a simplified drawing, or a drawing of simple supercoiling, where you can begin to understand. This is like, looking at how threads work together and crochet in order to form an actual sweater. And so the reason why DNA does these curling, twisting maneuvers and uncurling, untwisting maneuvers is that in order to read the loops that are not tightly coiled, tension must be taken off of certain areas. And so what DNA does is it snips. Let's use red as a snipping color. It'll snip this area and this area and kind of take out that chunk. And that relieves tension so that then the rest of the DNA can be book pages that are opened up and read. And then the DNA will come back together. It'll get reinserted, it'll get snipped back together. So what I'm trying to get across is the idea that there are incredibly complex formations that are constantly being created with your DNA, where it is being coiled up, uncoiled, enzymatically snipped, portions removed, portions copied, portions reinserted, and that all of this is a dance, all of this is a behavior, and all of this has a particular like rhythm, that it is movement that is like a dance. It's not just some dumb, stupid thing. It is actually very graceful and beautiful. And now here's another really good picture because it shows, go back to the annotation. So this is an actual, photograph on a microscopic level of what DNA looks like. And you can begin to see pretty accurately here how this one has accurate. You see, we've got two lines that are close together, and then here's the big gap. So minor gap over here, major gap over here. This is, I'm showing you DNA anatomy. And this is like Aurora, like you are telling me like how to string a piano. Yes, I'm telling you how to string a piano so that you can better understand how the strings in your piano behave. So it gets coiled around these histones. And here's the important stuff. When we start getting to this level of supercoiling over here, we're starting to create donuts. Look, everybody, here's a big red donut hole, all right? So what I'm gonna draw, like, let's say these are very hastily drawn donuts, right? With the donut hole there, and there's another donut that is stacked beneath it, and another donut that is stacked beneath it. So now we're getting to the actual meat and potatoes. Aurora, how does the flying rainbow lasagna actually transform the expression of DNA? One of the ways that it does so is through taking these toroidal or donut-shaped structures and turning them into flying rainbow lasagnas. Here, I'll get a different color so that we can see. If I start to vibrate that donut along this axis, I call it up and down, but that's just totally, arbitrary. We end up getting that waveform around the side with one singularity up here and one singularity down here. That's kind of the shorthand for a lasagna shape. And when we're doing that, what we're doing is rearranging the events that are on the skin of the torus, the membrane of the torus, which is actually the membrane of death, which is the selection of events that causes the end of your life, where you can no longer jump through time anymore. We're rearranging those events. And we're doing it not just once. That's one little flying rainbow lasagna there, but what if we have multiple flying rainbow lasagnas? Boom, 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 and they all overlap. We have many, many overlapping flying rainbow lasagnas that are allowing each of these coils here, where I'm highlighting in blue, to share a little bit. That's what superpositioning does. So I'll go back to my face. Wait, I have one more thing to show you, and then I'll go back to my face. No, I'll just keep on going with you. Superpositioning means that we are overlapping two possibilities or more of reality. Like there's one possibility where you woke up in the morning, this morning and you had a cup of coffee, sitting on your front porch, and a different possibility where you decided to drive to the local coffee shop and sit on their patio and drink your coffee there. And if you are going to do the flying rainbow lasagna through time in superposition, what you would do is you would take, let's say, I'm going to take this much from the reality where I sat on my front porch, and I'm going to take this much from the reality where I went to the coffee shop, and I'm going to add them together, and I'm going to end up with a, here's a purple, composite reality. It doesn't look any different color on your screen. It should use a different color. A green composite reality down here. That is the blending together of those two other possible realities. Okay. Clearing away this, I know I'm going over this fast. I will go over this in much more detail when I show you one more image. This is more meat and potatoes. This has everything to do with DNA behavior and how flying rainbow lasagna happens. So DNA replicates when we have mitosis, the one cell splitting apart. And DNA also replicates, just as I was saying, the RNA messengers read what is in the nucleus and then create its transcription. I hope you can see that word down there, right down there, transcription, how we make copies of the information that's in your DNA. So all these letters up here that I'm highlighting with this arc, those are all symbols for the different protein structures that are in your DNA, and each one could be analogous to a note on the piano, like you've got these 4 basic notes, and that this is the song of you, it's the musical score of you. So the RNA messenger goes into the nucleus, it copies, photocopies, like, you know, or whatever, takes scans in, takes images of what are the notes that your biology is supposed to be playing. And then what it does is it transcribes it, which is this yellow arrow down here in this diagram. And that's making the copy, right? So the whole point of why I'm telling you this is that it is a normal part of the DNA behavior in its lifespan. If it is coiled together as one single thread over here, to become uncoiled and create this type of Y shape here. Let's coil, 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 Y shape. So that's what we've got here. It's coming together. It's coiled together over here, and then here it splits apart. And that splitting apart motion is the most crucial thing to understand in terms of doing the flying rainbow lasagna with your own DNA. This is like a zipper that has been unzipped, and now each of these little teeth that I'm drawing is the amino acids that are, you know, the notes on your particular musical score of your life and your body, your life structure and your body structure. And there's, choose a different color here. This area where I'm highlighting in black, that's empty space. That's nothingness right there. That is what, you know, it's would be considered a very unstable thing to just have nothingness there. Because, you know, we have to unzip it so that the RNA messengers can get in, can read what's in those zipper teeth structures, right? If you unzipped all of your DNA, you would die. It would be too unstable for you to be able to maintain your biological processes and your cellular metabolism and your consciousness, your body as a container for consciousness. So what I teach everyone to do is not just unzip your DNA and leave it hanging. Like, that's totally a vulnerable position. That's the word I'm looking for. When you're unzipped like this, you are vulnerable. Is to put the flying rainbow lasagna in that area of vulnerability or empty space as a genetic placeholder. That what we're doing is taking this, you know, just like I say, a tornado is created just out of the whirling motion of atmosphere, right? Flying rainbow lasagna is created just out of the whirling and oscillating motion of time itself. And you create this literal whirling oscillation at the subcellular genetic level that holds the DNA open in that Y-shaped structure. And what is important here is the understanding that ordinarily, you know, T always goes with A always goes with T, C always goes with G. These are like dance partners. And they're always dancing with the partners that are directly across from them. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And they're like, I'm bored with you. T is like, I'm bored with you. I'm bored with you. I'm bored with you. These are all of the already established dance movements that you can do. But what if you can have a different dance partner? What if this T over here can all of a sudden connect with this A over here? It's like, oh, look, a new dance partner. I've never danced with you before. And then maybe these two can connect together. Here's a T and an A. Oh, look, those two can connect together. And here's a G over here that's going to connect with this C. Wow, look, those two guys just connected. All of a sudden, we have the capacity for many, many more variants or variables in this expression. That's like basically saying you can take any book. If I gave you a random book, the phone book, you know, whatever, I don't know if they have phone books anymore, a random manual for like in electronics. I don't know if they have electronics manuals anymore, but you get what I'm talking about. Random stupid stuff that's not really intelligently arranged. And if you can rearrange the letters of that random electronics manual or phone book, you can turn it into a masterpiece. You can turn it into whatever, you know, Moby Dick, James Joyce's Ulysses, whatever, a masterpiece of literature. And that is what you can do with your body. That you can consider the pre-existing dance movements, you know, these combinations of amino acids with the dance partners across from them, as the random owner's manual that was given to you from your parental generation and many ancestors, you know, many hundreds of generations back. But you can take that, rather uninspired, rather uninspired capricious collection of information, and you can turn it into a masterpiece. And this is what I call being a genetic virtuoso. Here, I'll go back to my face. Being a genetic virtuoso. It means that we take the genetic material that is our starting point, that we come from, you know, our parents and our ancestors. And then we say, we don't have to follow this melody. If I don't like this melody, I can do a different melody. I can do instead or something like that. So it's also, it requires total responsibility. Like once you begin to transform, you can't be like, I blame that guy. I blame my feet shape on that guy back there. It's like, well, wait a minute. Now you're in control of your foot shape, but the shape of your foot, not only the shape of your foot, but let's say the function of your foot. Because once I'm drinking water, once we start to get into these levels of being a genetic virtuoso, your aesthetics must be in alignment with values of unconditional love and divine intelligence. You can't just be like, I want to have 12 toes instead of 5 toes on a foot. Like you could theoretically transform on that level, but you have to say, why do you want 12 toes? Or someone would be like, I want to have purple eyeballs instead of, you know, like white eyeballs, or, you know, whatever. Any of these things, you have to say, why do you want to change to those aspects? Hold on. Because what I'm really an advocate for is the idea of moving to levels of total health and vitality and fitness and, you know, the antithesis of disease and the antithesis of death. So, you know, like, well, if your eyeballs are colored purple, will that help you to live better? Will that help you to live longer? Like, what is the impetus for that? Because people are going to be like, oh, wait. Like, I'm short. I want to be tall, or whatever. I'm fat. I want to be skinny. My feet are too big. I want them to be small. Like, don't just be like, oh, flying rainbow lasagna, I'll change my body just so that I can fit into human society better. It's not about that. It's about becoming the greatest expression of what you as an organism can be. So, you know, if we look at, there's all sorts of different types of dogs. There are little tiny Chihuahuas. There are giant Great Danes. It is not appropriate to say like, oh, I'm going to become a genetic virtuoso, and then I, as a little tiny Chihuahua, can grow to be as giant as a Great Dane. Like that might not be necessary. But let's say that through years and years of selective breeding, humans have introduced certain propensities into the line of Chihuahuas, you know, to have certain diseases or whatever. A Chihuahua can, flying rainbow lasagna, transform their genetic code so that they live very healthfully and well, even in their diminished size, and they don't have those propensities towards whatever disease that they have as a little dog or as a big dog or as a whatever. So each one of us, no matter what you are, if you are, you know, whatever particular race or whatever particular flavor of humanity you are, you're supposed to be that thing. It's not like you're supposed to turn, we're not supposed to turn into the Borg, lack of individuality or anything like that. You're supposed to be you. You're supposed, if you're not supposed to be like, I hate my hair texture, I hate my skin color, I hate my, it's not supposed to be like that at all. It's not about cosmetic changes. This is about body functionality. And so a lot of this is about health and vitality and having a divine connection, not just about your appearance, even though I understand this world is very based in appearance. Hold on a minute. And I know there's lots of questions in the chat, but before I get into questions in the chat, let me keep going with my momentum here. I have my very, very fancy, I said fancy dancy pieces of wire in order to show you how DNA behaves. So when DNA is twined together, like let's say this is, you know, one of those one strand of DNA, it's twined together, it's like a thread of yarn. But in order for it to be replicated, so remember there's 3 different ways that we can, you know, replicate, that we can understand this. I'm not speaking correctly here. Of the way that flying rainbow lasagna can be applied to genetic behavior. When it is supercoiled, this thread is coiled up like around my fingers and makes shapes that are like this. And shapes that are like this, torus, toroid, can turn into a flying rainbow lasagna. But when this is uncoiled, this turns into a Y, and that's part of the natural behavior of DNA when it is chromatin, an unfurled sweater in the center of the nucleus of your cells. So this is going to get split into a Y, right? Now it's shaped like a Y, and I'm holding on to the part that's like a thread over here. And this area over here is where the RNA messenger would go in here, and it would read the amino acids along here and create a complementary strand. And there's wonderful videos in the supplementary homework of exactly how this happens. And it's a whirling motion. There's like a little apparatus, a little molecular apparatus that spins around very, very fast, and it shoots out like a ticker tape. It's incredibly dynamic. This is part of the dance that happens inside of each one of us on a genetic level. Largely, most people are unconscious about this. You don't have to be unconscious of this. You can begin to understand and feel what is happening inside of you, and even be in charge of the music, not just be an experiencer of the music. You can choose which notes you're playing. So when DNA is split apart like this, what we can do is put this flying rainbow lasagna here. I don't mean that you get a plastic insert and put it into your DNA. No, none of this requires physical matter at all. It requires willpower and thought structure. So what we do is, in order to create a flying rainbow lasagna there, we've got this torus shape. We start to take this and make it move like this, all right? And when the flying rainbow lasagna is created, this is a static sculptural shape, but what ends up happening, I'm going to turn the whole thing on its side now, right? And what we have is, imagine this is one strand of your DNA. One strand of your DNA is going around this. I hope you can see. Can you see? Put the light over here. You can't see any better. There's a wire going around the front here, and then that wire goes around the front here, and then that wire goes around the front here. That's the front of the DNA. And then there's a wire that goes around the back part too. I don't have enough hands, but if I DNA'd, maybe I could change and have more hands. I'm just joking. I wouldn't do that. 2 is perfect. We've got one strand of DNA that goes around the front here. Can you see that on your screen? There we go. And then one strand of DNA that goes around the back here. That is the whole point. So here, if you were in my studio in person, I would ask you to squint so that you have monocular vision instead of binocular vision. And I would hold this up to your eye in just the right way so that you would see that crossing over point. The camera on our apparatuses here acts in order to give us monocular vision. So it takes away, we don't have the binocular viewpoint. The camera is doing it for us. So when I hold this up to the camera, what you're able to see is it looks exactly like the double helix, where I've got the crossing point. That node is right here, and the other crossing point goes behind it. So I know I'm stumbling with my words. It feels like so difficult to put this into words. But the point is, this is an oscillation. This is an oscillation. We've got that singularity jumping back and forth. So we have split the DNA in half, right? We put this flying rainbow lasagna in the middle by making that oscillation happen where the DNA is split apart. And then what we can do is have a new combination of do-si-do partners. Instead of the combination of partners just being across up and down like this, because this is rotating, this is moving. We've got it jumping in and out like this, and we've got it spinning round and round and round like this. And that means that we can all of a sudden start to have combinations, I'm trying to use my best way to show you, diagonally, at this angle, at this angle, at this angle. All of a sudden we can have many more new and interesting combinations or variables or iterations. An iteration meaning a possible combination or set of events and behaviors in the expression of your DNA. This is the whole point of what we're, so the actual flying rainbow lasagna dance, and I'll get into all of your questions. How do I do my dance? I don't sit down and say like, okay, now I'm thinking about my DNA, I'm envisioning, double helixes. That is not the way it is done at all. Just like if you're going to play the piano, you don't think like, okay, the string that is my C string, or the guitar, like it's like, this is 32 inches long and it's at this amount of tension. Like you don't think in that way. You strum your guitar, you play your piano. It's an experience, something that you feel. So right now in each one of our bodies, we're all feeling the music of our DNA. That's a big thing. So your DNA is constantly moving, just regular. Everybody has their DNA constantly moving. What flying rainbow lasagna allows you to do is to begin consciously transforming the dance movements of your DNA into new patterns. So one of those new patterns is, hey, you don't have to actually die. Hey, you don't have to actually die. Everyone gave you this mental pattern when you were young that said, hey, death is inevitable. But I've been trying to show everyone with this graphic representation that death is not inevitable. Death is the aberration. Death is what happens when we are going at a diagonal in terms of our trajectory through time. Remember, our trajectory through time is determined by the dance movements of our DNA from moment to moment. If you change the behavior of how your DNA dances, you change the train cars that you are jumping into. Why would you jump into a train car? That's going to be your last train car. You wouldn't. If you could be in charge of the movements of your DNA and be able to choose, I don't want to jump into the last train car and then fall off a cliff and have nowhere else to go. Choose a different train car to jump into. Jump, jump, jump in a new direction. So this is the whole idea. And that jumping, we don't do it by thinking like now I have to jump. It is done in the same way that music is experienced. And that's like, I am not a bullshit artist at all. I'm telling you something that is like a very real thing. And also it's something that you need to experience. So I'm using all the words that I can to try and describe it. I'm using music as an analogy, but it is that same type of jump that is the quantum leap from one electron shell and one level of excitation to the next electron shell and the next level of excitation. That's it. So it means it's not a jump that is done incrementally. Like I'll take one little baby step and then another baby step, another baby step. Quantum leap meaning you do the jump all at once. And the way that the little electron does the jump is by first getting lots of energy together in its savings account. That is how it gets to be very, very, very excited. It's like, oh, I've got $10,000 in my savings account. I'm very, very, very excited. And then it's got enough money to make the jump. It's just like if you wanted to, move across the country from East Coast to West Coast. It's like, well, you're going to have to save up all of your money on the East Coast so that you have enough gas to be able to make that cross-country journey, and then you get to your destination. So that's what I'm trying to say. So the leap from having a toroidal energy structure into having a flying rainbow lasagna energy structure is a leap. That is a leap of consciousness. It is done all at once. It is done by gathering together your energy or accreting light. That means you get light. How do you get light? You get light by sun gazing, right? That's how you get light directly. And you get light indirectly from, where's my wonderful, drinking wonderful good food that's full of light, or eating wonderful good food. Your food must contain light for you to refine light out of it and have enough light in order to make that jump. So you need to get enough energy to make the jump. And then I use music as another form of energy to get, and it's also a dance to get me going, and emotional energy. So a big part of those pesky occupiers are the interstices, the guys that live on the membrane. We would define them as demons. We sometimes call them prutis in this class because they are pesky occupiers of the interstices. It's a little anagram. That they are supernatural residues of consciousness, and they're constantly trying to feed off of your consciousness because they don't have their own connection to life force energy. So they are constantly trying to steal and siphon gas out of your car while you are trying to save gas so that you can drive across the country and transform your life. That is what is going on. So in order to make this leap of consciousness, you also need to learn how to be, like, let's say, encrypted, how to make sure that you, first of all, if your genetic expression is analogous to a painting, if you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to get my painting, I'm going to get my genes going like this, going like this, going like this. You got to make sure that someone else isn't going to come along and be like, oh yeah, nice painting. How about if I just take a rag and wipe this all away, and then that won't happen like that? Because what we're talking about is creating events. You get to do the flying rainbow lasagna just like I've taught about doing the Merkaba in terms of manifestation. You're manifesting your body, you're manifesting your health. And when I say manifesting your body and your health, I'm not just talking about your cellular structure, your biology, whether you're healthy or diseased. Because you could be the healthiest person in the world eating all sorts of wonderful green salad, but if you're in the middle of like the 5-lane freeway, then you will get run over, you will die. Like that, it's all health and vitality also comes from not just having good lifestyle choices, but making good choices about like health, safety, like where you are in the time field. So once again, you can have great lifestyle choices, but if you make an erroneous decision, like turning left in traffic or something, then you will die. You will be splattered all over the pavement. You will die. You will not have any more train cars to jump into. Doesn't matter how much kale you ate. So in order to live an extended amount of time, that's what we're talking about. How do you align with this central core possibility? Not go at an angle, hit the membrane of death, but how do you go at the central core timeline and go back to that central convergence point that is where you emanated from? How do you do that? And the answer is by accreting enough light, getting enough energy, activating your higher faculties so that you can actually see the road that you're driving on, being in control of your steering wheel, which your steering wheel of consciousness is your thought structure. And we've spoken at length in this class about the invaders of thought, the invaders of mind that came in and transformed human thought structure, and that they've been holding onto your steering wheel. They do intrusive thoughts, like actual verbalized intrusive thoughts. They also have foundation flaws in their presumptions. Like if I ask you, why is an onion? You're like, Aurora, that question doesn't even make sense. There are foundation flaws in the question that you're asking. So the rational, logical mind that's implanted and defined as quote unquote human mind has foundation flaws in there. And all of those things are designed to siphon off gas from your car so that it makes it harder for you to transform into a flying rainbow lasagna. When I mean transform into a flying rainbow lasagna, it means you start to dance in new genetic patterns and you get to be in charge of your life. And I also call this becoming the auteur of your own existence. So this really runs contrary to a lot of teachings that put your, that externalize your destiny, that pretty much say your destiny is written either science people would say by your DNA, you're destined to get cancer or to have certain genetic malformations, or to the religious, they would outsource their destiny to a god, a bearded sky god that says, yeah, now you will get cancer. Now you will have this experience. Now you will have this disease. And what's really happening when we are able to flying rainbow lasagna is we get I call it a magical paintbrush, or imagine a pencil with an eraser. That your DNA is like the script of your life written by the great scriptwriter. That didn't just write in, you will be born with brown eyes and attached earlobes. Like, that's not all that they wrote about you. They also wrote various different events, which you can now see if your DNA and its dance is making you jump from moment to moment, then being in control of the dance of your DNA means you get to choose different event structures to jump into. You don't want to jump into an event structure that has you smashed up on the highway after you ate all that kale salad. You want to jump into an event structure that has you living well, living in high vitality for as long as you choose to be here in this format on, in this realm on the planet or whatever. So I know there's many, many questions. Wait. I'll get to all the questions. I drink of water. Drink of water. It's a good moment to have a break. Okay, wait. And let me squint and scroll. I know I make funny faces. Bear with me. Okay, wait. Okay, good. All right. So I'll get into vortex for part 2, lesson 2, for level 2. I'll get into vortex-based math and the numbers system that is represented by the skin of the torus and how we are rearranging that with flying rainbow lasagna. Okay, Joelle says, Aurora, are you saying we can literally physically shape our DNA toroidal structures into FRLs? Yes. Thank you, Joelle. Thank you for your intelligence. That is exactly what I am saying. Okay, so up into the moment that I spontaneously invented the flying rainbow lasagna in 2001, the toroidal structure is what Earth's magnetosphere, the magnetic envelope that protects, surrounds, interpenetrates our planet, was shaped like. The sun's heliosphere. The sun's heliosphere is so large that where my hand is out here, that's the void of interstellar space, and all of the planets are in here. The sun's heliosphere is enormous. It encompasses our entire solar system far, far, far out into interstellar space. It is also the shape of our galaxy. Our galaxy has a wonderful magnetic field that is toroidal in shape. Our DNA has these toroidal shapes. And let me show you one more. I show you all the time these images, but we'll just go to one share screen image. Share screen, everyone. Here. Share screen. Technology, no? Come on. There, I got everything all prepared over here. Here. Good. Is this one showing? I hope the correct image is showing, but I'm just showing you very quickly an image from my artwork that I share in this class all the time, where we've got the anthropomorphic humanoid figure in the middle, and then these donut-shaped or toroidal time structures, energy structures, consciousness structures that are circulating around the human. So you've got a torus shape in your cellular structure in your DNA, and you've got it here in your non-physical time body. And when you add an additional dimension, that means you add an additional degree of freedom. You are adding it on a cellular level, and you're adding it on the time level. So all of your little cells and atoms too. Atoms have energy fields around them that are shaped like a torus, and those energy fields can transform into flying rainbow lasagnas. The basic adage from this class is any place where you have a torus, you can transform it into a flying rainbow lasagna with the addition of another dimension, which gives a concomitant additional degree of freedom. So the extra dimension that we're adding is the empty space. Where's that little V? So this was our DNA, right? These two wires are our DNA, twined together over here where I'm holding with my hand, and then they split apart into a V, and then the RNA messengers can read along here. This empty space here, that's another dimension, another spatial dimension. And that is what is being held open by the flying rainbow lasagna oscillation. And that other dimension can also be understood as the space where I'm putting my pinky in this sculpture right in here. In art, it would be called the negative space. Sometimes in this class, I say it's the negative space. People think that means it's the evil space. No, it's not the evil space. Here was my cup. The negative space of my cup is where you put the water in the cup. It's where the coffee goes in the coffee cup. So it is the interior of this shape is another dimension. And this is all in order to visualize what we're doing is taking, if we are experiencing time as a flat plane, we wake up in the morning over here, I get out of my bed and I drink some coffee, and then I move through time, and over here I have lunch. And then I go for a little dog walk, and then I move through time, and then I have breakfast over here. And I don't jump immediately from waking up in my bed over here to dinner over here. What I have to do if I want to do that is become a higher dimensional being, which would be analogous to growing wings and being able to jump off the flat surface of time and fly directly there. Or, even better, save your energy, fold that sucker, fold the fabric of space, time, and consciousness so that now breakfast and dinner touch like that. And I don't have to move at all. I'm totally efficient. I'm just going to stay in one place, and I'm going to fold the fabric of space, time around me. And that is what I do every day when I'm doing the flying rainbow lasagna. So I'm sitting here in this time and space in my flying rainbow lasagna lawn chair, that wonderful participant, Tiffany, made that for me. I danced so vigorously that I broke the canvas part of the lawn chair. And so she did an industrial sewing machine job, and she made this beautiful rainbow canvas thing. So I sit in my rainbow lawn chair, and I'm here, and my body is here, and my body is also connecting to all of these other far distant places, physical space, and far distant times by folding the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. Just like I was talking the other day about taking a scarf and being able to make puckers and folds and gather together all of those far distant aspects of time, space, and consciousness. That is what I'm doing. So I'll get into more of the exact. You can ask me specific questions like, Aurora, how do I actually do this? I'll tell you all about how to actually do it. Okay, this is wonderful. Nicole, because I think Nicole is the person who had shared an experience of doing the flying rainbow lasagna spontaneously in order to avoid a traffic accident. I think that is you. And forgive me if I don't remember who told me that was, but she says, yes, I have experienced, quote unquote, editing this out of my time field in 2010. So that this is what we're talking about. That as you are given a pencil with an eraser, let's say the book of you as it is initially written and given to you. It says blah, 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 and then you're going to die horribly in a traffic accident on blah, blah day. You're like, wait a minute, I don't like that last chapter. Let's erase out that part and write in avoid a traffic accident and go on to live several more decades in health and vitality. That's a story I like a lot better. So when I say the auteur of your life in Hollywood or filmmaking, auteur is a person who writes the screenplay, right? You come up with the idea, you write all the dialogue, does the set design, casts the characters, choose which actors to play every role, gets together the costumes, is the director, you set the scene, you're the cinematographer, you make everything look beautiful, you do the makeup and the hairstyles, and you're the actor also, and you're also the audience watching it. You're everything. You are the auteur of your life. So this is a radical departure from the way that we've been taught in human society. Either an external God, this is traditional human society, teaches you either an external God determines your fate, and determines what's going to happen in your life. And you're just bumbling along like a ping pong ball, like, from moment to moment, but the external bearded sky god got it all under control, is making stuff happen. Or if you're more science-based or more atheistic, then you just think, oh, the universe is like a clockwork structure. It's full of gears. It was wound up at a certain point, and now it's just moving towards entropy. And these are just, objects and particles bouncing off of each other. And you have again, something is genetically written into your code. You're just fated to experiencing it. All of these are disempowerment stories. And I'm just so wacky that I'm like, hey guys, here's an empowerment story. Here's a story of how you can actually be in charge of your life, how you can actually transcend difficulties. So I just bring this up as my own personal experience and as a template for other people to use and understand they can do their own version of this. So I came into this body as a galactic visitor, right? And the body had a lot of neurological disruption. That was what killed the previous occupant, right? And what gave me the opportunity to do this genetic dance and create a new portal and come into this body. It's not very much fun to have to live with damaged neurology. So I found ways to supersede that damage. Like if this is the neural pathway and we can't go through in the direct, whatever, in a straight path like this, hey, what if I jump up and over? What if I jump up and over the damaged area and get to where I need to go? Or what if I fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness to be able to make that neural impulse go where it needs to go? So that I use that as one example, and in level 2, I'll get into even more examples of how we can actually apply Flying Rainbow Lasagna to our life. What does it actually feel like when you do it, and what are the more expansive things that it can make you do? Because if I'm like, okay, I can give you the phone book, you can use Flying Rainbow Lasagna, your pencil with an eraser, to erase out words that you don't want, to repeat words that you do want, transformed it into a new format like that. That's only with the words that are on the page in that book. But what if all of a sudden you can begin to get Flying Rainbow Lasagna energy and ideas from other books? What if there was a word or a symbol or some aspect that's not in your book? You're like, I need an asterisk symbol. And there's no asterisks in my book that I'm using here. Well, then what if you can Flying Rainbow Lasagna with someone else and their book that might have lived millions of years ago and get the asterisk symbol that you need? So that's going to be in level 2. Let me get through the rest of these questions here. Okay, Pedro says, it won't make a link with another, a T link with another T, just another A, another part of the DNA strand. So you're asking about the actual combinations of amino acids. So T, this is the taurine, I think it's called. We've got C, G, A, and T, and A and T always fit together, and it's kind of like Velcro. Like if you've got the fuzzy side of Velcro and then the hooked side of Velcro, and they stick together. That is the way these amino acids fit together. Or it's like these two notes. They fit together. But we can put them together in new ways. Like if that's a C and an E, right? C, E, C, E. What if I use a C from all the way down here? And an E from all the way up here? Or this C? Or this E from up here with this one from down here? We begin to be able to we have more variables, we have more combinations. And all of this, so okay, why do we have to rearrange our DNA? Why does death exist? Why have we been subjugated as humanity? Because of genetic invaders, right? Lesson 18, the happy fuzzy lesson where we find out our planet has been raped, our DNA has been demolished, we've had our higher faculties taken away from us, we've been programmed with Stockholm Syndrome, really fun stuff, right? Why do we have to do this? Why are we in this position? Because literally humanity has been degraded and disempowered. And now if you want to get out of this level of constraint, what you can do is write a new story. So the basics are, we were constrained as individuals and as humans and as a society, blah, 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 up until this point. But now with the invention of Flying Rainbow Lasagna, each one of us has the capacity and the opportunity to transform our experience. And if one person transforms their experience, it's like, oh, great, like that guy transformed and now gets to write a fun reality, erase out the things they don't want, be super healthy. That's great, that's great. But we still have a society that's horribly out of balance, and environmental degradation, and babies born with brain cancer. Like, that's not great. So what's even greater is if lots and lots of people do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. There's an artificial intelligence that is more ancient than this planet and any technology that is on this planet that's malevolent, and that is also part of the human genome degradation. And it is, it's a type of digital intelligence that is based on logic and calculations and what is predictable. Like if 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 + 2 = 4, and you can just keep on bringing that and extrapolating that to, whatever, 254 million plus 254 million equals on and on and on endlessly. But that is very predictable. And when you flying rainbow lasagna, you create moments of complete unpredictability and novelty. This is just like I joke in that movie, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a very cute movie and very cute book. It's worth looking into. They're in the spaceship Heart of Gold, and they press the infinite improbability drive. Press the big red button. When you press the big red button, it scrambles reality. For a moment, anything can happen. It is a moment of complete novelty. Flying rainbow lasagna is analogous to pressing the big red button genetically. And because you're doing it genetically, it means you're transforming biologically and also in terms of the time field. Your experience being submerged in the time field. So you're transforming timelines. And all of this is about healing the time field, which has been limited and distorted by that ancient artificial intelligence. So the more unpredictable you are, the more unpredictable more of us are, the better it is for Team Human, the better it is for our planet. The more, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, actually. Our divine nature is an unpredictable, jazzy music. We're jazzy biological musicians, and we're not supposed to be predictable. It's supposed to be like, wow, every day is different. Every moment is different. Every moment is an opportunity for our consciousness to create something new and have a new level of perception and experience. It's not supposed to be like what most humans have experienced up until this point, which is, plotting, mundane, methodical, predictable day, especially in this industrialized time when it's like you wake up at the same time every day, you pay attention to technology as opposed to nature. Like your computer is the same every day. Computer websites are the same every day, but your backyard is different. The trees are different. The leaves are like, we have been completely divorced from that world of unpredictability and variability. And we learn to live inside of boxes and focus on screens and focus on all of these predictable aspects of time. And, to be an artist or a musician, that's considered to be like the ultimate, like, what? Like, you do weird stuff at weird times and you live unpredictably. Like, yes, that is we're supposed to be like wild, undomesticated creatures. The way a wolf runs through the woods, it doesn't walk on the same path every day. It does different things all the time. That's what we're supposed to do with our minds. We're supposed to be completely magical, wild, unpredictable creatures that are constantly creating reality anew, constantly embroidering new events in reality. And our transformation begins with our own body, physical structure, but it doesn't end there. Like I say to everyone, this is your real estate. This is what you actually own, your actual body. It's your quantum laboratory. You're allowed to do experiments in your quantum laboratory. When you start to do flying rainbow lasagna, what you're doing is making your inside your outside. And then you recognize that you're actually expressing and externalizing everything that you are to the rest of the world. And you recognize that you're interrelated or interactive with all of these other people that are doing the same thing. They're externalizing their inside. So then the outside becomes a collaborative art project that is the end result of many, many people that are externalizing their inside. And then you recognize how profoundly connected you are to all of these different consciousnesses. I know I'm doing more questions. So Pedro's question was about which amino acids actually can combine together. So we still need to have those complementary pairs, but in level 2, I'll get into what if we can connect a T with an A, but maybe the A is from 10,000 years ago, or maybe the A will be around in 10,000 years. So we'll get more into that. Salu asks, the leap from toroidal to FRL, does that transformation occur through the vortex of the 6th or 7th chakra? That's a really great question. It happens through the vortex of every single chakra on your body. And the chakras, we have the main chakras. If I share this image right here, share screen. These are the main energy organs. Here, this simplification. There are 7 layers of your being. There are main energy organs, right? But now I'll go back to my face. Every single cell, physical cell of your body is shaped like a torus and has a flying rainbow lasagna, that is a potential for flying rainbow lasagna. And you are made of trillions of cells. So you've got 7 main energy centers, right? Each one of them does flying rainbow lasagna. And also all of your cells do flying rainbow lasagna. You also have many like sub nodes. If we look at the branching structure, like if the 7 main chakras are like the major blood vessels of your body, you know, you've got the aorta, whatever, you know, your veins and everything like that, all the way down to the tiny little capillaries that are in your fingertips. I haven't drawn in that image every single capillary, but we have many, many sub chakras, and let's call them, you know, minor nodes and minor connections. All of them do the flying rainbow lasagna. Atoms, every single one of your atoms all are shaped like this too. So you have trillions of cells that all begin to vibrate like a flying rainbow lasagna. And then you also have atoms. You have an uncountable number of atoms in your body. And all of them start to do the flying rainbow lasagna also. And that is just with what's the raw materials available in this moment now. That's just the first part of it. And level 2 is all of those aspects of self begin to vibrate and do the flying rainbow lasagna with other times and places. So that's level 2. This is wonderful, Pedro. You're getting my references. Pedro says, "Don't panic and get your towel." That's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a very, very cute book. Yeah, it's worth delving into. It's fun. Okay, great question from Gala. She says, "Is the Fibonacci number sequence a part of ancient technology?" So the Fibonacci number sequence is an expression of a natural algorithm that could only be understood once human numerology became sufficiently advanced to understand it. So the algorithm or waveform that is in existence is a abstraction. It's like a song, like that's a song, the song exists, the song is a song that is timeless, that exists throughout any culture at any time. That song or that basic pattern or algorithm could not be understood by humans until humans started using Arabic numerals. Up into about whatever, like the 1100s or so, in Europe, in Northern Europe, what they've been using were Roman numerals. Like we're familiar with, like I'll draw it out, Roman numerals. Let's go to Roman numerals here. So Roman numerals, we've got, you know, 1, here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4, and here's 5. You totally get what I'm talking about. This number system made it very difficult for humans to actually calculate. So what happened was in around the 1100s in Europe, there was this guy named Fibonacci, and he visited Middle East, and the Middle East had actually been heavily influenced by India, where they had created what is now known as Arabic numerals, which are actually Indian numerals. So Fibonacci picked them up from Arabia and called them Arabic numerals, but they actually had been transported a long, long time ago from India, which was far, far advanced in terms of numbers, math, calculation, and numerology from the West. And those Arabic numerals now made it possible for much greater levels of calculation and arithmetic. That means addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So on the downside or the upside, depends on how you look at it, it now made it possible, for much more possible in Europe, for bankers to start to calculate things like interest. Like, oh, I loaned you this much money and now you owe me this much money plus extra. I did the calculations. This is how much you owe me. Like that was literally what happened. So it became, you know, it's like it's a tool for keeping people down if, you know, you have those expressions. But it also allowed for an understanding of the biological proportion known as phi. The biological proportion of phi is 1 to 1.618. So if I hold up my hands to the screen, the length of this knuckle bone to the length of this knuckle bone is 1 to 1.618. And in my teeth, the size of my side tooth here to my front tooth here is 1 to 1.618. And the length of my arm bone to this arm bone to this arm bone is 1 to 1.618. Like we have these natural rhythms, just like the shell of a nautilus. They are built within our physical structure because we are part of this wonderful, intelligently arranged time structure, and our biology expresses that. So now if I go back into the whiteboard, okay. Here, just clear out all this stuff. So this 1 to 1.618 ratio. So, okay, Fibonacci started to understand it by this. 1 plus 1 equals, oh God, I can't write here, 2, and 2 plus 1, we keep adding the previous numerals, equals 3, and 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? And 3 plus 5 equals 8. So this is how we have this basic understanding. And what if we plot that as a graph? Like here's a graph over here, and we're plotting this. The division, 1 divided by 1, or 2 divided by 3, or 3 divided by 5. What we end up having is an oscillation that at first is very big, like this, and then it gets smaller. Oops, let me try to draw better. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's very, very tiny, but it's still oscillating up and down a little bit. And that is what happens as the numbers of the Fibonacci sequence get greater and greater and greater, and you keep adding together these larger and larger digits. And then if you divide them, the proportion that they represent is this proportion over here. So that's what I'm saying. It's an algorithm or an oscillation. And the oscillation gets finer and finer and finer, but it never ends. So this whole thing, so 1, 2, 1.618, that is the proportion that's known as phi from Phidias, who built the Greek Parthenon, which is the understanding of this oscillation over here. And that oscillation is represented all throughout nature and, into the harmonics of the stars. I'll talk about that next week. So the natural oscillation and what we're seeing expressed in our biological architecture, all of that is like part of the great intelligence, part of the great composer. Let's call it that. It's part of the great composer. The capacity to be alive. When I say to everyone, like, if you want to be alive, you got to be a good musician. Play the right music, play the right notes at the right time. Embodying what is known in this culture as the Fibonacci sequence in your physical biological architecture is, quote unquote, being a good musician. But the use of Arabic numerals to represent that algorithm of biological life is, I would say, an outgrowth of that ancient artificial intelligence technology. I'm not against numbers. I love numbers. I love math. I find them fascinating, but they are a tool. They're an artificial tool that is just like when we use language, that's a tool where it's symbolic structure. That Arabic numerals and numbers in general are symbolic structure that help us to understand something secondhand, but it's not direct perception. Because when you begin to activate your higher faculties and see through here, you don't see what looks like a field of numbers. Like, that movie, The Matrix, and you see like ones and zeros and a plus and minus, whatever. You see all numbers. That's not what it looks like. That is not what it looks like. It looks like an abstraction. I'm putting some of these paintings on my wall over here. It looks like an abstract world of polygons, shapes, line, colors, and sound, and different intensities of light and different intensities or qualities of color, and that's math. When I'm doing my paintings, I'm doing a representation of math. So that's real interdimensional math. But in this world, what we've been using for hundreds of years and what's been working pretty well as finding a common language to talk about numbers are Arabic numerals. So Arabic numerals, it's not like you don't have to be in love with them. Be like, I love you, number 3. I love you, number 4. Like, they're symbol structures that we use to understand 3 things or 4 things. So yes, when you start to get to higher dimensional perception, the numbers part kind of melts away, even though the numbers are an understanding and an expression of all of this truth. Okay, so I think I've gotten through all of the questions. Wait, one more. What follow question? Good, Pedro's wonderful. A follow question from last class. Pedro asks, are there more collectives like yours out there? So I'm part of a collective that runs on the Stellar Network, and there's really one Stellar Network. But I would say that there's lots of different beings traveling on that network, and we all interact respectively and respectfully, but there can be, let's say, pockets of individuation. So it's kind of like saying, like, because it's really one great brain. There's one great brain that the stars are an expression of, and that brain can definitely have different thought structures, like, now I'm thinking about moving my hand, now I'm thinking about moving my eyebrow. Like, the brain can be doing many different things, but it's pretty much one brain. So my best answer is that I'm really part of something that is united. And even in that united sense of collective consciousness, there's still personal individuation. You might also have your own personal project or your own personal song or musical expression, but then you might have your own band, the people that you play music with. But then your music, personal and from your band, has to mesh with all of the other bands. It's not like in the great brain you have the battle of the bands. That would be considered like some kind of, like seizures or neurological disruption or whatever. That does not exist at those higher levels. So there's opportunity for individuation, opportunity for pure self-expression, but all of that must be done through like a harmonious integration with all of the other things that are going on. And that also has to happen across time. So what you're doing right now as a musician or consciousness being has to integrate with the stuff that has come before you and stuff that will happen in the future. So what a wonderful question. Okay, let me end the recording for level 1, but go directly on to level 2. Level 2 is all about advanced flying rainbow lasagna movements across time. And I think that this will bring up even more interesting questions. So thank you very much, everyone.